welcome back to my channel. For those of you who may be here for the first time, I am an amateur photographer. I'm a hobbyist. I wouldn't even label myself a photographer. I have a camera, and I have some lenses, and I have a few lights, and I have a lot of fun. And that's about the extent of it, and I'm learning all the time. And if you're here and you'd like to learn with me, and you'd like to go on the adventures that we go on, and see all the mistakes we make, and that kind of thing, then this is the place for you. Please hit the subscribe button. You can hit the little bell for notifications, and down in the description below, you can buy me a cup of coffee at my coffee channel. That said, I'm having a lot of fun. Last weekend and this weekend, one of the things that I've tried to do for 2020 is to put more joy in my life, and part of that entails actually getting up off of my butt and going out and taking some pictures whenever possible. And today, rather than sitting up here at the front of my couch as I normally do to try to get even the least bit of blur in these pictures behind me, I just thought I would sit here and talk because I have no B-roll. There is no video footage of what I'm about to talk about. Just some pictures. So pull up a chair, a couch, recliner, grab a cup of coffee, glass of tea, whatever it is that you choose to drink, and let's talk about sports photography. One of the things that I am uniquely aware of is that I have limitations. I do enjoy landscape photography, and I was out this morning again at Snooper's Rock, and yesterday taking pictures of sandhill cranes, which was kind of a wasted effort, but we'll get to that in another video. But I have some areas that I really enjoy, and I'm learning, and I have some, I think, a particular skill set that's growing. And the pictures that I take, I'm enjoying more, even though I might take 60 or 70 shots of a waterfall and come away with two that I like. You know, that's, as I understand it, that's not that out of the ordinary for just about anybody. This past week, I am a high school administrator, as you may or may not know, and one of the things that we are called on to do from time to time as administrators is to be the administrator on duty at sporting events, specifically for me, for basketball and football. And even in the middle of COVID, the basketball games are still going on, although the crowds are very limited to maybe 100, 150 people in the gym, mostly family members of the players. And so this past week I was assigned to do the basketball game. And I thought, well, if I'm going to have to be there, I might as well take my camera. So I had my 24 to 240 lens to try to reach as far as I could, even though I knew at the other end of the court that wasn't going to work. But it did pretty well for half court toward me. I started off, they had the varsity girls game first and then the varsity boys game. And so for the varsity girls game, I set my shutter speed at 1/500th of a second. And I set it on shutter priority so that, and I put my ISO on auto because the EOS R does a pretty good job at high ISO rates. When the camera is thinking about things to do that way, it's got a set shutter speed and it knows it has to shoot at that shutter speed. And so it brings the aperture down to get as much light in as possible, and then adjust the ISO to compensate for the rest. And I was shooting in RAW, and I was shooting a high capture rate, so I might shoot off 6 or 7 shots at once. What I learned from that is that I am not a sports photographer. Now I got a few shots, and I probably have about 40 that I'm going to export and send it to the coaches and say, here, if your players would like these, that's great. But, that's 40 out of 300, 350 shots. I could have easily taken 1,000 shots, I suppose. And if I had been on my game, I would have walked to the other end of the court and got shots down there and then walked back. But as it is, I took shots at the home end of the court during fourth quarter. During fourth quarter, I think. In an effort to just be where our team was shooting baskets closest to me. Now, I'm not a big sports enthusiast. Let's just be upfront about that. I watch a little football every once in a while. I rarely ever watch basketball. I never watch baseball. And my God, I don't watch golf. So, having said all that, and probably a bunch of people just clicked off my video, that's okay. A couple of things that I learned as I was going through this process is it takes a certain knowledge of where the play is going to be ready for the play to happen. I would find myself getting ready to take a picture and the play had already moved past me before I could get it even remotely in some kind of composition. I was going as fast as I could, but I am not fast enough. Now that's a skill set. That's something that has to be learned and cultivated over time. And I'm sure if I went to shoot basketball games every time they played, at some point I would probably be better at that. The other thing that I was having trouble with was a focus point, because I generally shoot with a single focus point, and I move that around the screen to get whatever I want in focus. You can't do that when you're shooting sports photography. If they're just standing there, obviously you can, but when a play is being made and there's actually something interesting going on, it's moving far too fast to know if that person is going to be on the right side third of your screen or on the left side third or in the middle. And so what I did was a horizontal zone focus so that at least half the screen in the middle, about half the screen, is where the focus was taking place. And overall, that worked pretty well for me. I have no idea if that's what was supposed to be done or not, or how to better do what I was doing. But it worked for me in most instances. Now, when the players were closer to me, in that zone focus, then it's looking for whatever's closest to the lens. And so if I was trying to get a picture of our player looking my way, but there was a defensive player closer to me with their back turned, the defensive player got in focus. And here's a picture, for instance. I'll show a few as we go along, but here's a picture, for instance, of a couple of players sitting on the sidelines, and I wanted to get the person on the left in focus, but I was still in this zone focus. I didn't take it off of that. And as a result, the other player was closest to me, and she's in focus, but she's got her back turned, which doesn't really help. And it would have been much better if the player on the left had been in focus, and she had been out of focus. Live and learn. So when the girls played, I was shooting in RAW 1/500th of a second. And then a photography friend of mine, I was just chatting with her through Messenger. She said, what I recommend is 1,000th of a second and shoot in JPEG, because there's going to be some noise and you're not going to be able to clean up the noise. But it will cycle through the pictures faster, and you could take a lot longer series of shots. Now, I was only taking 5 or 6 shots, so RAW wasn't that big a deal. But I changed to JPEG for the boys' game, and in JPEG, I probably could have shot off 20 pictures and not had any buffering problems to the disc, where I would have if I was shooting in RAW. And she was right. When I pulled it into Lightroom and I started editing, the noise wasn't as bad a problem as I was afraid it was going to be. In fact, I didn't really denoise any pictures that I can recall. Now, it may be, and I haven't looked at it really close, but it may, because I did crop a few pictures, and it may be that it crops better in RAW than it did in JPEG. But even then, on my iMac screen, which is a 27, 28-inch screen, it's pretty good size. On that screen, I didn't notice any particular difference in what happened when I cropped into the RAW file as opposed to cropping into the JPEG file. So the bottom line is, I had a lot of fun, and I would love to go back and do it again and experiment a little more with focus, and maybe take more shots in a string so that I have one of the things I noticed by only shooting 5 or 6 and letting up is that at the foul line, I was finished shooting before the ball ever hit the hoop. And I should have kept shooting, so that when they went, total net, no rim, through the basket, I could have caught that moment. And as it turns out, I did not. So, it's a really nice, it's a nice exercise, and I had a lot of fun. And I always enjoy watching our kids play, even though I'm not a big basketball fan. When I get out there and I see kids from my SLC out there playing, and they're playing their hearts out, and they're scoring and they're rebounding, and they're doing crazy defensive stuff, it does make me proud, even though I have absolutely nothing to do with it. So anyway, we will get back to other kinds of videos soon. I have the Sandhill Cranes thing. I want to talk about the 100 to 500 millimeter lens I rented. And I think I finally got all of the things I needed for my trip to Snoopers Rock, and so I'm working on that video as well. And in the meantime, there'll be other things that come up. But for now, I'll leave you with a few pictures of our basketball players, and I hope y'all have a great week.